All right, let's begin. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so thrilled that you are here with us. My name is Paulina Cameron. My pronouns are she, her, elle, and I am the CEO of the forum. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Our audience today is made up of our donors, sponsors, mentors, speakers, supporters from the last few years, and we are so happy to have the opportunity to share with you the tangible impact of your community support. As you dial in, welcome you to either turn on or off your camera, whatever you prefer, and to please make sure that you are muted. I first will start off with recognizing that I am dialing in from Vancouver, which is the traditional and stolen land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. As a first-generation white settler, I feel a tremendous gratitude as well as a responsibility to the elders of this land, and I remain committed to a journey towards truth and reconciliation. As we're dialing in from all across the country, I encourage folks to pop into the chat where you are dialing in from today. And if you are ready to acknowledge the ancestral land that you are on, you may share that as well. And we will also link a resource in the chat if you are wanting to find out more. I'll take a second here to peek into the chat to see where folks are dialing in from. I know that we have for sure one person from Vancouver Island. That much I know. We have someone from Ottawa, from Mexico. So great. Thanks, Sharon, for dialing in from a little bit more of a distance from us. Toronto, Vancouver, Edmonton, Alberta, Toronto, good few provinces. Amazing. Thank you folks for sharing. So today we are here to talk about the importance and the power of mentorship. As we approach the finale of our 6th forum pitch program, we've been reflecting as a team on what each of our finalists walk away with. And consistently, one of the most valuable components that our entrepreneurs tell us of the experience has been the mentorship and the community that comes together around them. So who better to have this conversation with us today than one of last year's pitch finalists and her mentor. We have with us today Karen Danudjaja of Blume and Nanon de Gaspe, Beaubien, Mattrick, or otherwise known as NGBM of Beehive Holdings. Karen will be sharing with us more about Blume's rapid growth and her mentorship relationship with Nanon, who has been a tremendous supporter of the forum for many years. Before we dive into the conversation, a few Zoom housekeeping notes. If you need or require it, closed captioning is available and you should be able to enable it via the bottom Zoom preferences on your computer. If you have any challenges with that, please let us know in the chat. The other thing we do have enabled is our chat feature. So please feel free to connect with one another, connect with our team in there. And as we go into the conversation, I invite you to input any questions you might have for Karen or Nanon, and I'll weave them into our conversation. All right, so I'm going to invite to our virtual stage here, Nanon and Karen, and I will properly introduce both of them to you. I'll start with Nanon. Nanon is the founder and president of Beehive Holdings, an angel fund centered on seed to Series A investing, focused on technology companies supporting diversified teams. Nanon served for 10 years as senior vice president of Telemedia, a Canadian telecommunications company. She is also the president and co-founder of Maison Homes, a real estate development company building luxury boutique residences and multifamily residential units in British Columbia. In 1991, Nanon co-founded MDGB Capital, where she is co-president. Nanon, you and I have known each other for a number of years. I don't know how many. It's been a beautiful number of them. And one of the things I so appreciate about you, one is the energy that you bring. Oh, folks, I'm just going to ask if you can make sure you're muted. Is the energy that you bring to all the conversations, Nanon, but you're also so incredibly generous and so true with your passion to supporting women entrepreneurs. We met, I want to say, well over a decade ago when I was running a very small at the time nonprofit supporting young women. And you were one of the people that was not only a cheerleader, but also activated your mentorship and support and sponsorship. So it's so wonderful to get to be here with you in this context.
Thank you, Paulina.
And I'll introduce now Karen. So Karen Danudjaja is the co-founder and CEO of Blume. Karen was born and raised in the suburbs of Toronto, Canada, where she studied, and then she studied at the Sauder School of Business and made home in Vancouver, BC. As Karen spent most of her time at local cafes drinking the same cup of coffee, she saw a gap in the market for functional alternatives that were simple to use and simple to understand. As she explored her own digestive boundaries and sensitivity to caffeine, she understood the lack of solutions without compromise. Pairing the nostalgia of your favorite hot drinks with the benefits of superfoods, Blume was born. Blume is now offered in over 1,500 retailers across Canada and the US. The team is made up of 13 women based in Vancouver, BC. And when she isn't making the most delicious lattes, she is on a trail or cooking in the kitchen, never too far from her pup, Charlie. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Paulina.
Is Charlie going to make an appearance?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for including me in this chat.
Amazing. So let's dive into the conversation, and we're going to begin with how you two met one another. So you were both matched for this mentorship relationship through the Forum Pitch program. So let's begin there. Can you each tell us what you thought mentorship would be when you went into the relationship, and perhaps what surprised you or was different along the way? Karen, let's start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, I met Nanon through the Pitch for the Purse. And I think because I met her through the program, I really thought it would be focused just on getting our pitch ready, that we wouldn't necessarily dive deep into all the nuts and bolts of the business. And I was really surprised by how deep we went in every single session. I think it's a special gift of Nanon's too, and not necessarily specific to every mentorship relationship, but she didn't hold back. She really wanted to go deep and figure out, what was driving me, what the overall vision was. And I was really surprised at how much care she took to learn what was actually going on in the business to help shape the pitch. So starting kind of from the ground up.
Amazing. And when you went into that, the kind of from the ground up and building and beyond the pitch itself, did you ever think that Nanon would be someone that, you had your eye on around investing in you or other opportunities, or what was your philosophy with how you approach the relationship?
No, honestly, I didn't. And I think that is maybe partly just where I was in the business too, and how we met, having an introduction in a totally different playing field. But I went into it thinking, it was this big opportunity to talk about things that were really holding me back in the business with someone who had the experience to add a light, to show a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I didn't go into it looking for investment or that being the preface of why we were talking. And I honestly think that was so beneficial, because I came in and Nanon came in on the same wavelength. We were there to improve the business, and because I wasn't there looking for other things with ulterior motives, I could talk openly about the challenges of the business and what I really needed help on. So yeah, I think that I really went into it with knowing what the problems were and knowing what I wanted to talk to Nanon about, and we focused on that, and it made it a really productive relationship.
So good to have that clarity of intention and then what you're able to create from that. Nanon, for you, I know how seriously you take mentorship. When we talked in preparation for here, we talked about how it's not just about showing up for the meeting and kind of shooting from the hip, but really being thoughtful, both around who you mentor and how you approach the relationship. I'd love to hear from you. What does mentorship mean for you, and how do you choose who you will mentor?
So for me, it is, when you read about mentorship, they talk about someone guiding someone. I don't view it like that at all. For me, it's really about a win-win relationship. I think if it's a really good mentoring relationship, we both get a lot out of it. And it's all about setting expectations, right? It's any relationship. What's any relationship built on? It's trust, right? So when Karen and I got engaged with each other, first thing I said, whatever you share with me stays between the two of us. It's our cone of silence. That's really important to have that ability to be in the confidence. It won't be leaked out. And out of any relationship, you get out of it what you put into it. So I'm very transparent. What you get what you see is what you get. So Karen knew when we met, I just put it all on the table, blah, this is what, and she was like, whoa. And that's how you start off and how the relationship evolves, right? So it was really great. We had similar values. I had used Karen's products before, so I was already a believer. I loved her value system of health and everything she came from. So we connected in that area. I didn't have any expectations on how we were going to work together. Oftentimes, I choose the people I want to work with because life is short. You only have so much time. So if I'm going to invest it with someone, because I go all in, I'm going to work hard at it. I expect the person to do the same kind of work. So if it's just one way, then it's not worth it to me. So I didn't have any expectations when I started with Karen, but boy, let me tell you, she showed up, she was early, she was prepared, she did the homework. I was like, okay. And we still continue that relationship of mentoring because of who Karen is, because she shows up and does the work.
That's so good. So you talked a little bit about homework. Karen, I'm curious, like, what did you do? Did you prepare for the meetings? Did you have an agenda? Like, how did you think and approach it to make it go really well?
I'm actually so glad you asked that question because Nanon is not joking that she gives homework. Like, I felt like I had during pitch for the purse and like preparing for the finale, like I felt like I had another job, which was like the homework from Nanon. And it was, reading materials, there were books she wanted me to read, articles about, anything from team management to visioning to like being efficient with your time. And, she wanted to see financials in a certain way to make sure we were looking at the same things. And we had an agenda, like we always had things that we were supposed to circle back to, a to-do list. And, I honestly really appreciated the structure because otherwise, we were meeting regularly, but you need these meetings to be, effective, like a good use of time moving forward. And having this like common set of like, this shared understanding of what we're working on and what we're moving towards really kept it productive. And we covered so much ground in such a short amount of time. So, yes, when I was given reading materials, I did the reading and, I prepared what we needed to have productive conversations, but it really, like, I took the lead from Nanon. Like she was like, these are the things we need to have productive chats. And I was there to get as much learning and growth as I could out of that relationship. So, I did the homework.
The homework was given and the homework was done.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's what we said at the start, right? You get what you put in. And so for both of you, you were putting into that. Now, in order to be able to do that, and you mentioned this word, earlier, but trust, like you really need to be able to have that container. You're sharing financials, you might be sharing challenges, you might be sharing all of these pieces. So how did you build and establish trust with one another?
That's a great question. But before I answer that, Paulina, I want to build on what Karen just said, because it's so important. I think what happens with any startup and any entrepreneur, especially when you're a founder, CEO, there's so much on your plate every single day. You don't have the opportunity to step back and analyze. And the whole point of where you're trying to go is, where's the future? What's your strategy? But because you're putting out fires every single day, you don't have that opportunity to step back. So I view the mentoring opportunity as the opportunity to pose the question that maybe the founder or the CEO doesn't have time because they're so reactive, putting out fires and dealing with daily operating issues. So that was really important for the two of us. And that gave us the opportunity. The issue of trust, I think we started off, I wanted to get to know Karen as a whole person. Again, a relationship, whether it's with your significant other, with anyone, it's about establishing trust. It's about getting to know the person, not only the business person, but the whole person. So that was really important to us in the beginning. And I shared with you the whole confidentiality issue, right? Karen knew that I wasn't going to go take the information and do anything with it. It was all about her. My mom's a child psychologist. So I learned early on, it's not for me to solve the problems. This is not about me. This is all about Karen. This is Karen's time. So I wanted to understand what Karen needed and what were her issues and the ability to listen to Karen and ask the right questions. The questions are what are so important. So it's not just a telling thing. It's like, Karen, so tell me what's keeping you up at night? What's success for you? What's your biggest, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Those were all the questions that were really important for me to hear. Whether I mentor Karen or someone else, they will be different. And that was really important. And that's how you establish trust, is getting to know the person.
And if I could add to that, like some of the things that Nanon did specifically that I felt, on reflection really built trust for me was that, we were part of this program that was sort of time bound, and Nanon made it really clear that we could continue past that time. She put meetings in my calendar that were like regular for the, like looking forward. She connected me to her network and had me pitch to other people, so I could get different viewpoints, because she would be the first person to tell you she doesn't have all the answers, and she wanted the best for my business, which means multiple perspectives. So I think it was also in, not just the confidentiality and like the real, like the questions that were driving and like what truly motivates you, so I can actually help you. But it was like all these little things she did to set up a process that showed trust and investment in the business in the long run.
That's such a great nugget, that the process can also be part of evoking the trust, like being very forward with both the questions and information, but the comfort of the process also providing that feeling.
Yeah, I definitely felt that. And I think it's like something that would be easy to miss, but on reflection was such a big part of us building like a long-term relationship.
So Karen, you just said something that I want to touch on, which is that you said that Nanon will be the first to admit that, she doesn't have all the answers, which really to me is a beautiful example of a growth mindset, right? Is understanding that there are things that we don't yet know that we can learn. And when you're the entrepreneur in the relationship, I know it can feel vulnerable to bring a challenge forward, and you need that trust and depth. So I'm curious, Karen, throughout the process and through the relationship, how did you keep that growth mindset alive and engage with, and not take things personally?
It's so hard, right? Because our business is our baby. Like this is, you're putting all your energy, all your resources into this. And so feedback, even if it's hard feedback, is like my initial reaction was always sort of defensive. And I do have like one example, and I hope you don't mind if I share it. But I remember having this conversation with her where I was describing, what I was doing day to day and what I was focusing on. And she was like, "Are you sure you want to be CEO? Like maybe you're more of a product developer or something like that." And honestly, I left that conversation feeling like just like, oh. but
I'm getting sweaty for you.
Yeah, I was just like, no, I'm pretty sure. But I had this opportunity to talk to someone who'd been there before, seen businesses thrive, seen them fail. And if I wasn't going to take her opinion seriously and take her feedback seriously and take this like look in this mirror, then it was just a waste of time for everybody. So I really went into it open and knowing that I also didn't have all the answers, and that's why I wanted to build this community. And like in that example, it was really something that I needed to hear. I was focusing on the wrong things. I wasn't looking at the long term of the business, and I didn't have a team that was going to support the growth. And she was really able to reflect that back to me in a way that actually got to me, versus it being like, well, maybe you need, some more support and you should be working on this. It was this like really stark reflection of what I was doing, what I should be doing. And I think that just like coming to the meetings with the belief and the trust that Nanon had my best interest at heart, helped, take feedback like that, actually internalize it and action it. So I think it really does come back to like coming with the right, set of intentions, coming with the mindset that you want to grow and learn, but the trust that Nanon had already set up in the relationship, so that I knew that even if it was, a harsh reality, it was for my benefit, and that I needed to take it seriously.
And I love that it was formed in a question too, because it did give space and gave a moment to, perhaps your answer was, could have been, it gave the space for that, back again to the intention of it being about you, not about even what Nanon thinks you should or shouldn't be doing.
No,
So Nanon, I mean, that's not an easy thing necessarily to deliver, and to deliver it in a way that's not going to have someone walk away, break down, but to build and elevate with that intention. How do you deliver that? How do you bring these things up? And yeah, walk us through that.
Okay, well, I just want to go back to that, because when I posed that question, I really meant it not good or bad. I really feel that different people at different times are meant to run the company, and some other people are meant to step away and let someone else run. And startups progress, right, into a middle-sized company, and there's we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So when I posed that question, I really was as straightforward and said, hey, is this really what you want to do? Or is there someone else that would go into that position? And maybe you're better at something else. I really asked that, and I meant it totally as an open question. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those are really the tough questions to ask, but that's our opportunity for the two of us as a mentor-mentee to pose those questions. And I think that business is really tough. I mean, it's very hard for a business to be successful. Most of them as startups fail. We know that. Mm-hmm. So I had said to Karen, hey, when I came into this relationship, I sit on these boards, all men. They ask damn tough questions, and they can be really hard-nosed on some of my female entrepreneurs. So I said, I'm going to be the easiest compared to what's out there. So, and even then you'll find it harsh. So I kind of thought I had prepared, Karen, but maybe some of my questions were really hard.
To be fair, this wasn't like in meeting one or anything like that. So and I actually think there were like, it is one of the most influential pieces of advice that I got from Nanon, and also from anyone, that because like if you want to set your company up for what's down the road 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you have to be thinking about that. And she's right that you spend so much time in, the operational fires of a small business. So it was her way of reflecting back to me where my focus was. And it was eventually well taken.
Well, you're still here as CEO, so. So I'm curious, Karen, upon reflecting on that question, you obviously answered it with yes. What changed? Like, what did you start doing differently? Were your meetings with not only Nanon, but in terms of your business, what shifted?
So I had to learn to let go of certain things and make time for the right things. And I think it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, and why it was so valuable for me to have that reflection, have someone to check in with to make sure that I was working on the right things. Mm-hmm. So that question really shifted, you've got this many hours in the day, or should you be spending it in this area or this area? And I really now spend a lot more time thinking about the future, spending time more on the vision of the company versus the day-to-day fire, so that there's someone looking ahead. And I think the other shift that really happened was building out a team of people who could support the growth, and learning that you can't necessarily do everything. And sometimes you need to, also find experts who can help you. And that was a really big mindset shift for me. So I think that those are the two big things that shifted from that question. And it didn't happen immediately, right? The next day it wasn't okay, I'm gonna find all these people and I'm spending 40 hours a week on the right things. It was this gradual movement towards thinking more long-term, and versus trying to survive today. And it's something that I have to constantly remind myself of, and is still something that I'm trying to learn and really integrate in my day-to-day. But it was such a good shift for me. And I think another thing that Nanon really gave to me too through that program was just shifting my expectations of what Blume could be. So, it was a re-envisioning of what we could become and what the goal actually was, versus thinking what will it be in 6 months? What could it be in 10 years, and raising the bar for that, and that I could be the person to take it there. So I feel my relationship with Nanon, and what I got the most out of those sessions was really, it wasn't necessarily the operational piece that I needed. It was the work that I needed to do to really lean into the entrepreneurial journey and me as a founder, and seeing myself differently. So those were some of the big takeaways from that conversation that I'm still, slowly leaning into more and more.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing. And it makes me wonder, Nanon, as you've had so many of these mentorship relationships and giving these truth bomb questions to founders. I'm curious, of all the different ones you have seen, obviously Karen embraced it and really sat with it, both did the homework and had that growth mindset and brought it to the table. But what are some of the other traits that you have seen entrepreneurs who have been able to kind of embrace the feedback and take it and go forward? What are some of those traits that you've seen lead them to success?
Well, one of the most important is being open, right? The ability to listen and to, I think one of the things that entrepreneurs have to think about, and they don't do as well, they could do more of, is at least what I'm seeing for the people that I'm working with right now, is the whole idea of prototyping and learning from what they're prototyping, the feedback they get, and internalizing that. Your customer will tell you what he or she wants, but you've got to have the ability to listen to that, right? And then the ability, and Karen and I talk about that a lot, about finding the best people, right? You're only as good as the people you have working, because when you start off, you try to do a lot of everything, but you can't grow a company unless the ability to scale is helping delegate that to other people. So going to find some really great people and finding some good advisors that can help you. I mean, typical for entrepreneurs is also, we're going through some, right now it's been wonderful. And they say everything, all waters rise all ships rise when the water's rising, or that English French translation of the quote. But basically, when times are tough, you need to have the money there, the cash flows coming in. You need to have saved for those times. And so you can tighten your belt buckle and go through the tough times. So you need to be scrappy and know how to do that. And Karen was always one of those people that said, okay, I've got this. I'm making sure there's enough run rate for me, that, yeah, my burn rate's this, but I've got the run rate in front of me. So when times are tough, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be one of the ones that will survive. Yeah. So I think that's all, and not getting discouraged. I mean, I think that one of the things that Karen, it's really hard. All the weight is on her shoulders, right? And the ability to have other CEOs, other women founders to share with, I think alleviates that a little bit. So you realize, I'm not the only one dealing with this. There are other people that are dealing with the same issues. I think that's also been very helpful. So those were some of the ones that I can think of that, have really worked for the two of us and have worked with the other people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. Yeah, thank you. And it's a really good segue to the question I wanted to ask next, which is around, why is it important to support women entrepreneurs, and what are the ways that it's important to do so? And maybe, Karen, can we begin with you in terms of what kind of support or activation do you find most helpful and you'd want to see more of?
I think what Nanon just said about connection, that is something that I've personally been so lucky to find in this community, and just like knowing that other people are going through similar things and feeling the same constraints and sharing the learnings. And I actually think that, like, going into like owning a small business or starting a business, I had this concept that it was, ultra competitive and people didn't were out for themselves or whatever. Like, there's this narrative of what business is. And, but I've found it to be one of the most rewarding communities to be a part of, because people are so willing to share their knowledge and really want to see you succeed, especially the women that I've met through the forum. And I think that, with the ebbs and flows and the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, just like having a community where you can say, like, today is hard, it's not always like this, but today is hard. Like, that is really important to have. And I think having community also with people who've taken it further is really important, like knowing that there is like a path to, from small to medium to large, and seeing that success that you can learn from and like feel hope from. So I think, connection is definitely something that I've gained through the Pitch for the First program, through Nanon, who's been so generous to share her network with me too, and has given me, like a North Star or a target that helps you stay motivated and stay scrappy and stay invested in your business.
And Nanon, you mentor women, but you also financially invest in women, and you also sponsor women. Can you first share a bit about the different ways that you support women? Like, what does sponsoring women actually mean? And how do you think about that? And when do you do which one?
Okay, well, that's so yeah, that's a really good point. People get that confused oftentimes, Pauline, the mentoring and the sponsoring. So one of the things that mentoring is what Karen and I will do, but sponsoring is, for example, I will say if I hear of someone that one of my CEO friends is looking for a female for a C-suite or someone, I know a lot of women. My Rolodex is a Rolodex mostly of women. So I can easily, and because I interact with them, I can give at least 3 or 4 names of someone that they would never think of. Mm-hmm. So whether it is to win an award or whether they're looking for someone in for a marketing CMO position or a CFO position, most of the ones I know are women. So that's where I will sponsor. Mentoring is more spending the time one-on-one and interacting very directly over a period of time with a woman, whereas sponsoring is just saying, hey, you guys haven't thought about this person or that person that you should, and mostly women, because that's my Rolodex is mostly women. So that's where I can play a bigger role, I find at least.
Thank you. Thank you. Nanon, there was a question that came into the chat that I would love to ask you, which is what are some of the books that you could recommend for reading? What are your top lists?
Okay, well, I'm a big book reader, but it depends on what topic. So careful. I usually have 5. I'm usually reading about 5 books at the same time. So I would say the ones right now that I'm reading that I'm really enjoying, it's called The Long Game. So basically she's brilliant. And she talks about, so right now you're involved in something, but you have 20, and Google did this really well. You have 20% of your time that you should be investing in your next thing. So I'll use myself as an example. I mentor, we do a lot of investments, I run a real estate, but I have a real passion for the elderly. So I started building some homes for older people. They're moving from their big, 7,000 square foot home to a 4,000 square foot home. So I started building, that's how I got in. And I started building and I started figuring out, okay, no lip for the shower, now I'm getting involved. I volunteer my time helping with an elderly group. I'm working with a doctor's office that focuses on the elderly. So I'm seeing myself going more and more in that direction, which I find fascinating. So I'm spending about 20% of my time getting involved with this new chapter called, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but elderhood, this whole area of growing older. And what does it mean? Is it investing business in that area? So spend some of your time. So that's one of the books, The Long Game. So you do, and it's a great book. I recommend it to everyone. That's one book. The Upside of Stress, brilliant PhD from Stanford. And it's all about, we looked at stress that was coined by Hans Selye as negative. And really stress can be, very positive. And they've shown how it can be positive, how you can channel it. That's another great book. The 7 Habits, Stephen Covey is brilliant. You've got to learn those 7 habits. I think the most successful people do those 7 things very well. So I always recommend that one. And I read it all the time. Another thing that I think is really important for entrepreneurs is the strategy. Are you playing in the right area? Are you thinking about, so Playing to Win is a brilliant book on strategy. So that's a book that I've read about 3 times that I think is really great. And then there's some philosophical books that I read, like Clayton Christensen, who recently passed, who talks about, so are you living the best life that you want to be living? Are you the best you? And what is success for you? And he really makes you define that. And I think that's really important for us. So those are some of the top, but I've got many more if you need a reading list, depending on what area.
Oh, we might have to have the Nanon book club at the forum. Love it. Karen, of those or perhaps other ones that you have read that that you found valuable, anything that you could share with the audience?
Well, when Nanon mentioned Playing to Win, that's one that she wanted me to read right away.
Yeah.
And so that was one that I read, and it did really shift my perspective. So I definitely recommend that. And I'm currently reading Radical Candor. And as a personally very conflict adverse person, feedback is really hard for me. I'm like a new manager and it's a skill that you need to learn. And so I'm personally loving Radical Candor and just learning the power of feedback and how to see it in a positive light versus it just being, I think the book basically is showing us how feedback is seen as negative, but it's really this really positive change agent. And it starts with caring personally about the people who you work with. So that's one that I definitely recommend as well.
And Karen, to build on that, the difficult conversations. one of the best book I've read on having those difficult conversations.
Yeah, like crucial conversations, like all of those, like around how to create safe space around the talks you need to have. And another book that I just read, and I feel like I'm late to the party on it, is the book by the Patagonia founder. Let My People Go Surfing, or something like oh, that book is incredible. He's just like such a visionary, and the way he thinks about his business is so different than he's a philosopher. So I loved that book. And I found it really inspirational. So those are some of the ones at the top of my list.
So good. Okay. Official book club. You're hearing it here.
I love it. Let's do it. Breakout room.
Right. Okay. I have one last question for each of you. And Karen, I'll start with you. Any final words of advice for the women entrepreneurs that are on the line or will be listening to this after?
I think, I think there are a lot of women who want to, at least in my community, who are like looking to start businesses or, kind of in like early stages of their business. And I think the thing that was holding me back, and the thing that I'm consistently working through, and what Nanon helped shed a light on, is just how limiting belief is like the biggest limiter of your business. So for me, the first step is the hardest step, and it's believing that you can do it, and changing the scope of what you believe you're capable of. So that's something that I was really lucky that Pitch for the Purse and Nanon really supported me on. So I think going to your community and finding those champions who are going to be in your corner and believe in you when it's hard to believe in yourself has been so valuable for me. And that community is out there. I think it's like just starting to ask for the support, and you're going to receive it, because people are inherently kind and want to share their knowledge and see you succeed. So yeah, that's what I would say, is that just changing the perspective on what you're capable of it's amazing what that can unlock.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that, because Karen, I think that's really important. You are the story you tell yourself. Whatever that story is, that's what you start believing. So make sure to reframe that story, if it's a negative one, into something positive. I really believe in that. And women, more than other people, tend to have that old imposter syndrome of think, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not good enough, I'm not. Stop that, reframe it. I think it's so important. And we've all read books about, that what you say to yourself during the day is one thing, but when you go to sleep at night, the subconscious is going to repeat what you've said negatively all day. So if you can reframe that, I think that is so, so powerful. So I agree with you, Karen, that was really important.
And finding the people in the community that are going to help reinforce that when you need the most.
Yeah, that adage of you become the 5 people that you spend the most time with, or that
totally.
you
so true.
Yeah,
so true.
And I was talking with actually an entrepreneur the other day, and I was asking her about this, and she said, in the pandemic, it was really hard to be spending time with the people that I chose to, but I substituted that with books and podcasts that I listened to. And so she was so thoughtful around the content that she was curating in absence of maybe having the other relationships, which I thought was a great example of there's so many ways to bring this to life that are really accessible.
And Paulina, I'd like to build on what Karen also said. I think it's really important for all people that are in startup mode. Business takes time. People expect success even more, I think, this generation, with the greatest of respect. Swipe right, swipe left, order on Amazon, get it tomorrow. Everything is immediate. In business, time hasn't changed that much as far as business is concerned. For success, it takes day in and day out hard work. And so be patient and try to say, okay, I'm going to go for the long term. This is how I'm getting there. I mean, that's one of the things Karen and I talked a lot about. And I think it's so important. Success is not going to happen overnight. So you're building, and you've got to have that stamina to keep on going. And that's why it's so important to tell yourself a positive story, and to build on Karen's point, to surround yourself by positive people that tell you can do it.
The long game.
Yeah, it's a marathon.
The long game. Yeah, it's a long game.
Mm-hmm. And like Blume is 5 years old now, and most people think it's been around for like a year or two. Like all the growth has happened really in the last in the last 2 years. So I totally agree with Nanon. Like you have, and there have been many failures along the way too, products that didn't land, things that didn't go right. So it's like reframing failure too, and like what you do with it. But it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. And 5 years into it, I feel like we're just starting. So I think patience is a really big part of being successful in the long run. At least that's what I'm telling myself.
I think it's echoing back at you that yes, and I'm gonna like re-accentuate what you said there, because that really struck me as so good, which is what you do with the failures that matters, because they will be inevitable and they will come, but what you do with them is what matters. Okay, Nanon, any additional, you've given us so many good pieces, any additional or final words for either women entrepreneurs or for those who support them?
I think this is a perfect example. Women gathered together, men, people that are all pro wanting to help, the ability to share and to talk about it and to keep on the continual learning. Life is it's long. It's a long process. You've got to keep reinventing yourself, learning, grow, stay open, be curious. I think that's really, really important. You learn things by reaching out and trying new things. So you can't be scared. So I think that's really important.
Amazing. Thank you very much for this very rich conversation. I so appreciate it. I know the audience does as well. So thank you for that. As I do our last closing remarks, if I can invite you both to pop into the chat how folks can follow you. So either website or LinkedIn, or where they can continue being inspired and learn from you. But just big gratitude for both of your continued engagement and support with the forum and all that you do for women entrepreneurs.
Thank you for having me, Paulina. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Paulina. It's been great. And thank you. I really enjoyed, Karen and I are having a wonderful time, and you gave us the opportunity for us to work together, and it's been so much fun. So thank you.
My new side gig will be matchmaking one day. So as we sign off the line here, folks, thank you so much for being on with us today. We're able to do the work that we do thanks to your support. This is our 4th Impact event, and we will certainly continue hosting more events like this in the future to keep us all connected and to honor and celebrate the impact of your support. I'm going to take my last minute here to give you a few calls to action for this community from the forum. Please continue sharing the word about our programs. Some of you may have seen, we officially launched our next cohort for E-Series, Entrepreneur Series, which is one of our 3 marquee programs. Registrations for that just opened today. We've already had a few folks sign up. So excited to welcome in another cohort of women entrepreneurs who want to grow their business. So this is a program that runs over May and June of this year and covers all of the fundamentals for a woman entrepreneur to grow her business. So you can learn more on our website and direct entrepreneurs that way. We also have the Odlum Brown Forum Pitch Finale in 1 month and 5 days. The countdown is on, and you have a couple options. You can join us virtually from your living room or wherever you'd like to be that evening, or live in person at the Fairmont Hotel Vancouver on April 28th. The forumpitch.ca has all of the information there, and we really look forward to welcoming another group of Forum Pitch finalists to this community. And my last note is, please know that my inbox is always open. I'm paulina@theforum.ca, and I always appreciate hearing your ideas, feedback, and considerations that you have for us. With that, at exactly 45 minutes after the hour, I will just say one more time, thank you so much. And if you'd like to, feel free to unmute as we say goodbye so we could hear a chorus of voices. Thank you all for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.